Okay, so you shared something recently, an excerpt that really stuck with me. It was from the Camino within book.
Yeah, that's right. The chapter called Why Are We All So Tired?
Right. And it just hits on this feeling, this, constant sense of being drained that I think probably loads of people feel.
It really does seem universal, doesn't it? And what's interesting is how the author goes beyond just like physical exhaustion.
Hmm.
So, for this deep dive, we really wanted to unpack that difference. Why does the author think so many of us feel this way, even when we think we're getting enough sleep?
Yeah, what's really going on? That's the big question they pose, isn't it?
Exactly. What's the real root cause?
Okay, so where do they start? I remember a story about biking.
Yeah, a pretty intense one. The author talks about this 4-month biking trip across some really tough European mountains.
Just hearing that makes me tired. Seriously hard work, physically.
Totally. But here's the fascinating part. Despite all that physical effort, the author makes a point of saying they didn't feel tired, not in that deep, soul-weary kind of way. Ah, okay, so there's a difference.
A huge difference. That's the contrast they're setting up.
Yeah.
Physical fatigue from exertion versus that persistent feeling of tiredness, even, like you said, after a full night's sleep.
Right, waking up, still feeling wiped out. I think we've all been there.
Hmm. And it leads the author to this central idea.
Which is?
Well, that this deeper feeling of being tired, it's maybe less about not enough sleep and more about lacking. Well, lacking engagement, passion, a connection to what you're actually doing day to day.
Huh. So it's about what you're doing, not just how much you're resting.
Pretty much. The author draws this really clear line between energy and engagement. Like, when you're lost in something you love, you might get physically tired, sure,
Of course.
but there's this underlying buzz, right? An energy that kind of sustains you. It's like you're plugged into something.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Hmm.
And the flip side.
The flip side is, say, a job you don't love. The author suggests that can lead to that chronic, heavy feeling of tiredness, the kind sleep doesn't fix.
Like your energy is just leaking out all day? Exactly. And the author puts it really bluntly. We're tired because we're not aligned.
Wow, that's direct.
It is. It suggests this tiredness is a symptom of a deeper mismatch. Like, between who you are inside and what your life looks like outside, trying to jam the wrong puzzle pieces together, it's exhausting.
So it's not just a theory, they back it up. You mentioned the bike trip.
Right. They keep coming back to that. 4 months of intense physical activity, steep mountains, and yet rarely feeling tired in that fundamental way. It really hammers home the point that physical effort alone isn't the whole story.
Yeah, that's a powerful example.
And then there's this other observation, kind of amusing but pointed. You hear way more people complaining about being exhausted in, say, a marketing agency than you do among people walking the Camino de Santiago, which is obviously physically demanding.
Right. That contrast really makes you think, doesn't it?
Right.
Maybe the type of effort matters, or the why behind it.
Precisely. It suggests that lack of internal connection, that lack of purpose, can actually be more draining than walking miles and miles.
And they talk about the feeling when you are engaged,
Right.
like being fueled from within.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling driven, focused, almost like you don't need that extra coffee because the work itself is energizing you.
Mm-hmm.
The author even shares writing the book itself felt like that, getting so absorbed they didn't want to stop, didn't feel the need for breaks in the same way.
That's passion, I guess.
It definitely points to the power of passion and purpose. It's like an internal engine.
Okay, so bringing this back to us, to anyone listening who feels tired, what's the practical advice here?
Well, the author suggests something really simple to start with. When you feel that tiredness creeping in, just stop. Stop and ask yourself, why?
Just why?
Yeah, it sounds basic, but pausing to actually ask can be, well, quite revealing.
Okay, and then what?
Then you do a quick check-in, the basics. Am I actually resting enough? Eating okay? Nourishing food, getting enough sleep?
The physical foundations, got it.
You have to rule those out first, obviously.
Yeah. But, and this is the really interesting part for me,
Mhm.
what if the answer is yes? Like, yeah, I'm sleeping 8 hours, I eat reasonably well, but I still feel this way.
Ah, well, that's when the author says you need to dig deeper. Look for those potential misalignments
And
in the big areas. Your job, maybe your main relationships, even just your daily environment. Where might there be a disconnect between you and, well, your life?
Okay, so it's about looking at the bigger picture.
Definitely. But, and this is important, the author is really clear. They aren't just saying quit your job or anything drastic like that.
Right, that's a big leap.
Yeah. They explicitly say, I am not saying that you should leave. I am saying that you should look at that more closely and decide for yourself what is best for you.
So it's an invitation to look, to reflect,
Yeah.
not a command to act impulsively.
Exactly. Careful self-examination.
And there are stories from the Camino itself that illustrate this, right? People leaving.
Yes. Sometimes it is physical injuries, exhaustion, fair enough. But there's this one story about a cyclist.
The one you mentioned earlier.
No, a different one, actually. This cyclist quit, but not because he was physically broken. He quit because he realized he didn't actually have a good reason to be there. No personal why.
Wow, how did the author see that? As failure.
Not at all. They saw it as incredibly self-aware. Courageous, even.
Courageous to admit you're on the wrong track.
Yeah. To admit you're doing something, maybe something impressive, but without your own internal drive pushing you forward. It's like acknowledging you're running on someone else's fuel.
And did the cyclist say that?
Pretty much. When asked why he was doing the Camino, his answer was apparently just, no idea.
Huh. Honest, at least.
Very. And he apparently added that he felt like he was just feeding off the other pilgrim's purpose.
Oof. That really highlights how crucial that personal motivation is, doesn't it? That inner compass.
Absolutely. And while the author kind of believes purpose can sometimes grow if you stick with something, they totally respected his decision, saw him get on a train, no judgment, just an understanding that he recognized a lack of personal connection.
Sometimes stopping is the right move.
It can be. It shows that just pushing through isn't always the answer if the why isn't there.
So this brings us to the consequences, then, of not having that purpose, that alignment.
Yeah, the author wraps it up by saying, essentially, that lacking purpose often leads directly to that lack of internal drive, that lack of passion, and ultimately that constant feeling of tiredness.
It's like you're running on empty because there's nothing fueling the engine from within.
That's a great way to put it. You're just going through the motions, maybe stuck in routines that feel, well, unfulfilling. And the author observes people like that often seem tired, maybe a bit withdrawn, maybe resistant to thinking about change.
Because change itself feels tiring when you're already drained.
Exactly. It's a tough cycle.
So for anyone listening, the core message seems to be start with the questions.
Yes. The author boils it down to, first, am I tired? Really feel into that. And if yes, then the big one, why?
And crucially, what can I do to change it? Even something small.
Right. It's a prompt, a nudge toward self-reflection, and maybe eventually some kind of positive shift.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive then. The big insight from the Camino Within is really this sharp distinction, isn't it? Between just being physically worn out and that deeper, more draining fatigue.
Absolutely. And the author makes a really strong case that that deeper kind, it's often a signal, like an internal alarm bell telling you something's out of alignment. It's not just about needing more sleep, it's about needing more. Meaning, maybe, purpose.
Listening to that deeper tiredness.
Yeah. And those questions the author provides, am I tired? Why? What can I do? They're such a practical tool for starting that listening process.
Definitely feels less abstract, more actionable.
So maybe a final thought to leave people with, building on all this,
Yeah.
thinking about the author's own journey and that cyclist who realized he lacked purpose, maybe ask yourself, beyond just trying to get more sleep or eat better, what's one small thing, maybe even something a bit unexpected you could try this week?
Like what?
Like exploring something that genuinely lights you up, even if it feels unrelated to solving tiredness. Revisit an old hobby, have a conversation you've been putting off, or just take 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes, to sit quietly and ask yourself what feels truly meaningful right now.
So less about fixing the symptom, more about finding the fuel.
Kind of, just taking a tiny step towards whatever energizes your spirit, not just your body. See where that inner compass might be pointing, even subtly, and what happens if you just nudge yourself slightly in that direction. Might be interesting to see what unfolds.